P.S. I want to give a quick warning. This episode has kind of a 18 plus thing, and cigarettes, alcohol, and abusive parents. So if you're not okay with any of these, well, anyone shouldn't be okay with these. Please do not listen because it will trigger some people. But anyways, let's get on. It was a day after your little hangout with Zenitsu, or what he still likes to call it, a date. You're walking home from school alone, as usual. As your phone was vibrating in a frenzy, you sighed, pulling out your phone, expected of what to see in the Komodo group chat. Zenitsu. And here's a pic of Yin-chan being angry at me on our date. Tanjiro. It's been a day, Zenitsu. We get it. You two had a fun date. Zenitsu. Oh, I also have this cute pic of her yelling at me. Genya. Somebody kick him out of this group chat. Inosuke. I just kicked him. He is weak either way. Zenitsu. Why did you kick me in real life, you bore? The two are offline. Tanjiro. Thank goodness Inosuke finally put a stop to him. Also, hi Yin. You. Hey Tanjiro, maybe I shouldn't have let Zenitsu take pictures of us. Now he's never gonna shut up. Genya. Why even let him in the first place? Are you stupid? Tanjiro. Genya, come on. You. He was all sad and mopey. What was I supposed to do? To cheer him up? And besides, it's just a few pics of us hanging out. Genya. A few hundred, you mean? He's been sending them since yesterday. Tanjiro. It's just a phase. He'll pass soon before we know it. He's done this before with a few girls. You. Like who? Tanjiro. My sister Nezuko. You. What happened? Tanjiro. Needless to say, I was a good brother who took Zenitsu out of that phase. Genya. Just tell her that you butt-headed the Pikachu until he complied. Tanjiro, you make me sound like the person at fault here. You turned off your phone to let the two boys argue amongst themselves. However, still in the back of your mind, the thought of Zenitsu played in your head. More practically, his relationship with Genya, Amada. Your lips formed into a thin line. You weren't one to be siding with this side without knowing a whole story. But Zenitsu seemed very angry at the things Kyaku had done. When you first met Kyaku, you didn't have much thoughts on the boy, aside from him being rude and arrogant. But he's never exactly interacted with you to really classify him as those things. You only ever seen him act like that with the Kazukis. Please stop. I said was sorry. The cries belong to a male snaps you out of your thoughts of the Kazuki member. You frowned worriedly at how close the voice was. Please, I'm begging you. You decided you should quickly move on from this and not to try to find the source of these sounds. However, curiosity defeats all resistance you had. You quickly jogged to the cries as they became incredibly louder the closer you got. You came upon a dark alleyway with the sounds of punches being thrown echoes. You see two dark figures, one holding the shirt collar of another as were throwing punches to the other figure. It was barely deflecting themselves on the ground. They were bleeding endlessly. You carefully made your way to the two figures, but a name was dropped, making your eyes widen and your feet take off in a flash. Kyaku, please! Instantly, you rush at the boy, who supposedly is Kyaku, and shoving him as hard as you can, knocking him to the ground. You quickly turn your attention to the badly beaten up boy on the ground. Are you okay? You help the boy up. His panting slowly steadied as he wore a grateful expression. Mom. Thank you. He hugs his beaten chest. He suddenly winces as he sharply inhales. Can you walk? Mm-hmm. Then get out of here. But go. I'll deal with him. The boy nods, quickly scuttering off and leaving just the two of you and Kayaku alone. You put yourself at a distance as Kayaku groggily gets up, fumbling. His eyes meet yours, full of hate. Kayaku! In a flash, Kayaku lunges at you, slamming you against the alleyway wall. Your head slams on the building's wall as pain shoots through your back of your head. One hand was blocking your path of escape as another was gripping onto the collar of your shirt. In an instant, both your hands grabbed onto his wrist, trying to free yourself from his grasp. You fucking bitch. Kayaku. Who the fuck do you think you are to jump in like that, huh? He brings his face close to yours as he rises the collar of your shirt towards his eye height. He must have been crazy strong if he were. So sorry for my yawning. He must have been crazy strong if he were to lift you up like that, with only one hand. Your faces were only centimeters apart, making you blush. Get yourself together, Yinlin. You mentally scolded yourself. He's going to literally murder you. Oh my god, my accent came out, sorry. Suddenly, Kayaku inhales through his mouth, making your eyes widen as you inhale the strong scent of cigarettes and alcohol. I'll fucking kill you. Your hand clangs over Kayaku's mouth, shutting him up on the spot. The smell of those two despiteful almost immediately. But before he could retort, with a shaky breath, you asked, You drink and smoke, Kayaku? His eyes suddenly went wide, but quickly became angry. So? Who's fucking caring? Your forehead comes colliding with Kayaku's, making the boy let out a painful groan. You fucking bitch! The hand blocking your way of the escape reaches over and grabs a handful of your hair, painfully. You bite back the pain and grab a hold of Kayaku's hair, then slamming your forehead a second time onto his. Ugh! You're fucking dead. I'll do this 100 times if it stops you from doing those things. You screamed at him. A wave of dizziness hits you, but still repeated it. Although what Zenitsu said about Kayaku was true. And that Kayaku will definitely kill you for all of this, but I can't let you become like them. Flashback. Question mark, years ago. Third person. You fucking bitch. A woman's voice echoes. Smack. The sound of a small child cries, angers the woman's even more. Get up, the woman angrily says. I said get up. The small little girl shakenly gets up, her body covered in purple bruises, as tears come streaming endlessly. The woman raises her hand, going in for another bit, but nothing happens. A young Yin is suddenly sitting up straight, awoken from such a nightmare. Cold sweat was covering all of her face. As her hand goes to touch the side of her face, her heart was the only sound that she could hear at such a late time. Just a dream, she mutters in a daze, assuming that since it was so late at night, she thought that she was the only one awake. But that was when voices could be heard arguing in the distance. You've got to stop drinking and smoking all our fucking life savings away. Miss Lin screams at the older male entering the dark living room. She storms up to him, grabbing the collar of his clothes. You even used a stash of money behind the fucking dresser, too. At this rate, we're going to end up on streets. It was around 3 a.m. as Mr. Lin had returned, all wasted. He reeked of alcohol and smell of cigarettes. The eruption scent fills up the dark, cramped living room as the man sways left and right from his wife, as his wife pulls. Get off of me, you bitch! He roughly shoves his wife onto the living room sofa, making her scream. What is wrong with you? She cries out, Her husband jabs a finger at her. Me? He retorts mockingly. I'm living this pathetic, shitty life because of... Both parents stare at each other, eyes wide as they both knew that answer to the question. There was only one person who they blamed for their miserable life. Yin. This is why she was a fucking goddamn mistake. Your fucking mistake, you mean? Mine? It's your fault. It's your fault not using a condom. You said that you were going to bring them. And besides, it was your idea to still do it. You stupid whore. The two parents fire insults back and forth, like some intense ping-pong game. At this time, it's definitely known that nobody would ever be able to sleep peacefully. Ian lies in her bed, staring up at the ceiling. After being woken up from her parents' usual bickering of one another, Ian raises a tired sigh. There went her last remaining hours of peaceful sleep. Because you and that bitch of a daughter, I'm stuck living like this. Me? You have the audacity to put this all on me? She's your kid too. And how would I know? She could belong to one of those assholes you'd sleep with whenever I'm out working. Don't act all innocent. I know you've been cheating on me while I'm out and about bustling my ass off for this shit of a family. Well, what about you? All these so-called business meetings and last-minute work calls. I know you've been going behind my back too, asshole. Ian turns to her side, her eyes staring at the faint illusion light of the moon from outside her bed window. It was always like this, day in and day out, night in and night out. The Lynn family was always at each other's throats, and their poor daughter was always the root of their arguments. They despised the girl for being a sore of their shitty life. A life that wasn't of luxury. A life that was forced them to work hours on hours shifts just to feed another extra useless mouth like hers. Their intended goals was to drop her off in the middle of nowhere when she was barely a newborn, but that was breaking some laws. They had the idea to put the girl up for adoption, but Yin's grandparents were so fond of their granddaughter. Mr. and Mrs. Lin only kept her for that sole reason. Therefore, they had wanted to ship her out the second she graduated from high school. She could have been in college and out of their lives forever. That fucking kid is going to be the death of me. The death of both of us, you dumbass. Yen brings her knees up to her chest. Her heart tightened as her parents' words echoed endlessly in her head. Her head was throbbing. At all the arguing, there was no way she could go back to sleep. Her thoughts were clouded of how much she had wished she wasn't born into the lives of Mr. and Mrs. Lin. Maybe if she wasn't born, then she wouldn't have made their lives miserable. She would have made them like this. She wouldn't have made them like this. It's all her fault. But then her thoughts turned into imaginations. Imaginations of the type of family she wished she had. A loving mother and father, two parents who loved her no matter what. However, this young girl opens her eyes and is greeted with the black void of her room, pride with the distinct continued fightings of her parents. There was no way she would ever have such a beautiful life like that. Ian's thoughts drifted to the nightmare she had of Mrs. Lin about to hit her. Her hands softly slid over the recent bruises she had gotten from her mother and father. One thing was for sure, alcohol and smoking were what fueled her parents' anger towards Yin. They used such things to forget about their shitty lives. However, once they returned to reality, they'd always do hard things to their poor daughter. If Yin didn't wake up from that nightmare, she would have faced Mrs. Lin's hands as usual. then it would always lead to the girl seeing red. Second person POV. In desperation, Kayako swings at her head, scratching the side of her face. What a strange last-minute resort for someone like Kayako. So desperate to free himself from a bloody situation. If one were to see him, they'd call him a coward of all things. A strange sensation forms at the sides of your face, making you release the Kazuki. Kayako staggers back as you drop to the ground. Both of his hands were on his bloodied forehead as your vision was blurry. A warm liquid thickered down from your forehead to the tip of your nose. The smell of blood hits your nostrils, making a wave of unforgettable memories arise. Memories of your mother and father who'd be terrible things to you. You let out the anger they had against you to show how much they hated having a daughter that took not only their space but their money. How many times did she ram her forehead against Kayaku's? Who knows? Must have been a lot if the two of them were ended up bleeding from their skulls as noticeable scratches. Despite this, Yin had to make a statement, a point that she, of all people, didn't want to see anyone, regardless if they were Kayaku or not, because the type of people, like her parents, anything but that. Has that knocked some sense into you? You muttered. Kayaku opens his eyes as the girl, who sat slumpered over, clutching her forehead. Who is them? The Kazuki asked. You raised your forehead only to meet eyes with the boy, who wore a distant look. You break away your gaze as you slowly stood up, a little wobbly. Some people, not good people. You didn't want to go any further in depth of the type of people your parents were, especially if it's to someone like Kayako. He wouldn't understand. The second you stand, a wave of dizziness hits you, making you fall forward. You try to catch yourself, but find yourself crashing right into Kayako. His quick reflexes catches you with a warm feeling from his arms around you, makes you lean towards him. You can feel him tense up, but just as you were to say something, he beats you to it. Did you do all this because of what that son of a bitch said about me? Kayako scowls. He was referencing to Zenitsu. He had to be. No, I mumbled. I just don't want you to turn out like them. That's all. Kayako stares down at you and lets go of you, lightly pushing you aside and out of the alleyway. Since when did you ever give two shits about me? Kayako? You're just like the rest of them. You think poorly of me. He eyes you. No, I'm just worried about you. I really do, Kayako. You firmly state. That's why. No, you pity me, don't you? He scowls. Well, that yellow son of a bitch is right. Kayako retorts to himself. This is the type of person I am. Everything you've heard about me is true. He takes a step past you before striding out of the alleyway. Don't ever judge me like you know who I am. Kayaku's body suddenly wears out as he sways dizzily. He lightly stirs to a nearby wall, a hand falling on the brick building for support. You rush to his side, but he swats you away. Fuck off. We're still close to the school. The nurse might still be in. You quickly grab his right hand and swivel it over your shoulder to support him. I'm getting both our blood asses to the nurse's office. Get away from me. You can't be walking around in public bleeding in between your eyes. You pause, your lips jokingly at him. Why do you even fucking care? He raises his voice, making your eye slightly widen. We don't even fucking know each other. Maybe it was Kayaku's first time facing a situation on hand. He usually wants to back off when he has an issue, gets messy to save his ass. But this time, he's still here. He wasn't running away yet. But a soft smile forms on your lips at the boy's question. You look down at your shoes as you start walking, well, more like dragging the Kazuki along. Maybe because I care about you, Kayako? That's all. Kayako goes silent. At the sound of the two of you dragging your feet to the Ketsuhai is the only thing that you can be heard from out of the alleyway. You glance up at Kayako, curious as to why he was suddenly quiet, but is only greeted with him turning his face away from you, only being able to see this part of his right cheek. After such a heated situation, no wonder Kayuki was red. Red because he was angry at your unexpected invitation. Oh, oh my god, intervention, right? But who would have known getting headbutted by someone like you would be incredibly painful? His POV. I've never felt this anger before. The amount of anger and resentment coursing through me towards this stupid first year was unbearable. But this infuriation headache from being headbutted by her thick fucking ass fat head doesn't even let me think straight. I can only even walk straight. I can't even let alone walk straight, let alone think properly. But there was one thing I knew for sure. That was that bitch that the other Kazuki loves so much. She's evil. She's the person in the wrong for even dare to judge someone like me. I'm in the right here. I was doing the right thing by being that first year boy who was judging me, assuming that I was weak. But then that girl comes out of nowhere and beats me like she's better than me. I can't let you become like him. Just who was them? And even if I knew who this them was, why did she even give a damn about me? She barely knows me, and if anything was the time we do not even meet. I've been either rude or obnoxious. So what the hell is wrong with her for trying to help get me treated in the nurse's office? Because I care about you. That's all. That time, the last time I had anyone care for me was that old man. Now he's in the hospital. Hearing her say that she cared for me was irritating. It feels bothersome. I slightly scoff to myself as Yin's body bumps against mine as we're barely managing to walk straight. My eyes fell on her bloodied forehead and the scratched side of her face as her eye-colored eyes were staring straight ahead, full of determination. I can feel another warm trickle of liquid slip down in between my inner left eye and the left side of my nose. I wince, clearly uncomfortable with a throbbing pain, but that girl looked so unfazed, as if she was used to it. I wonder if this isn't her first time seeing red.